Hey, it's Philip Lee returning with another episode of Civil War Chat. Is November 1st, 2020. Today what I want to talk about is the Stonewall Jackson statue at VMI. And secondly, I want to talk a little bit about how we can communicate with one another in the post below on YouTube. So first, starting with the VMI statue, everybody knows that it's coming down. What happened is that the Board of Visitors, which is 16 people appointed by the governor and approved by the Virginia legislature, voted unanimously to remove the statue. And I think that they'll probably remove the statue of the memorial to the cadets that were killed at the Civil War Battle of Newmarket as well. But for sure, the Stonewall Jackson statue. I've seen some remarks that have accused them of being spineless, but when I look at the the indoctrination, the military indoctrination that the cadets go through there, there's about 1,800 of them. I can't call them spineless. Now, 12 of the 16 Board of Visitors are VMI graduates. The other 4 are not. So I can't say they're spineless, but I think it may well be legitimate to say they're being spineless in this particular case. So what I want to do is I want to read an article that was written by a guy named Brad Schaefer for the Daily Wire. And he's from Illinois. Currently he's on Wall Street, and he's written a novel, a wartime novel called Of Another Time and Place. I think it deals with World War II. But he wrote a letter. He wrote an article for Daily Wire, which was supportive of keeping the Jackson statue. They're condemning them for what they're doing, but at the same time, be warned, he is not a uniform supporter of Confederate statues. I think he would clearly be willing to take quite a number of them down, but in this case, he thinks it's wrong. So let me read his letter. I'm a little embarrassed that we haven't seen somebody with a more Southern viewpoint come up with something as good as this. But anyway, let's get started. There are at present 2 statues of Confederates on the campus, and one honoring the young members of the VMI who fought at the Battle of Newmarket for the South, of course, as this is Virginia and that we're talking about. One of the generals, Thomas J. Stonewall Jackson, was even an instructor at VMI before fighting for the Confederacy in the Civil War. His statue has been targeted for removal first. In an obnoxiously self-congratulatory announcement, the VMI Board of Visitors called this, quote, a bold and unanimous action, close quote. Bold? Hardly. Bold would have been resisting the pressure of the nihilistic activists, as General P did. Sacrificing nothing to curry favor with a vocal PC mob is the opposite of bold. It is another trait that I sure hope isn't being taught to the VMI cadets as they are supposedly being prepared for battle. This action is incongruous for a school that calls itself a military institute that happens to be in Virginia, as the Virginian Jackson was one of the greatest generals this nation has ever produced. His campaign in the Shenandoah Valley and fluid operations in Northern Virginia during the spring and summer of 1862, not to mention his brilliant flank attack against a superior Union army at Chancellorsville in May 1863, are legendary. They are analyzed by students of military arts to this day. One would assume that goes for the cadets of VMI as well. The irony of removing his statue, quote, bold or not, from this place is plain to see. Yes, like many in Virginia during his time, Jackson owned slaves. But he was also, by accounts of his former slaves, a kind master. Of course, this does not excuse the practice or his part in it, but it should be noted that Jackson was a fervent Christian who, according to the Washington Times, quote, struggled with the morality of a system that enslaved men and women with whom he shared a brotherhood as children of a loving God. Yet those same scriptures taught salvation, those same scriptures that taught salvation also recorded centuries of slaveholding all over the world, which provided Jackson with the simplistic rationale that if it was condoned by the Bible, it must be acceptable, close quote. However, Jackson also defied Virginia law by founding and financially supporting, even from the front, a Sunday school for slave children. Teaching slaves to read and write was anathema in the antebellum South. Yet Jackson, believing that all God's children should be taught the Bible and Christ's ways, ignored that law, placing himself at risk of arrest. Incidentally, it was quite more common than this article indicates. Again, do not think this in any way a lost cause justification for such a wicked system. It does, however, show us that often good men are the unwitting and inescapable products of their times, and this includes being born and raised in Virginia at a time that perfectly intersected with slavery and secession. Washington, Jefferson, and Madison were also Virginians who practiced slavery, but in an earlier age, where they were placed in a position to create rather than to tear asunder a great republic. They have monuments in our capital. But who is to say that had Washington been born in 1832 rather than 1732, he would not have joined his beloved state of Virginia, as Jackson and Lee had, and lead the Southern Army in her defense? Or for that matter, what if General Patton had been born in the previous era? Patton was a VMI graduate. Is this the accident of the timing of one's birth? Is the accident of the timing of one's birth the reason for whether or not they deserve remembrance, especially a military icon on the campus of a military institution? One may study Jackson's tactics apparently, but never be confronted with his image to and from the classroom in which the general's lessons are taught. Is this not excess, as always is the case with the social justice warriors? For them, it is about the next struggle. There is no finish line because an inoffensive utopia is unattainable in this world. The fact is there are no purely good people. Everyone, from the saints to the sinners, has flaws, and at what point do we put them in context and stop this mad purification that will leave us with nothing but statues of Rosa Parks and Mother Teresa? It should be noted that in 1906, long after Jackson's death, Reverend L.L. Downing, whose parents had been among the slaves in Jackson's Sunday school, raised money to have a memorial window dedicated to him in the Fifth Avenue Presbyterian Church of Roanoke, Virginia. If an African-American church can look past the sins to the decency of the inner man, cannot a military establishment give the same courtesy to one of their own? One can understand, even if they do not agree with removing Jackson's statue from a public park or thoroughfare. But for the morality police, American history and the statues and monuments to those who made it happen are ripe for the picking. Do not be surprised if Leland Stanford, California's viciously anti-Asian governor, whose name is on a certain other institution, is targeted next. When does this end? If it doesn't, of course, it is the act of revolution that is the end in and of itself. Perhaps in places like the VMI, men like Stonewall Jackson should remain visible as reminders of what they have to teach those who are preparing to engage in another brutal practice, meaning war, or possibly putting down a revolution. I'd rather know the man or woman walking the wall knows more about how Jackson stood his ground at Antietam, he means Sharpsburg, than whether or not in another time, in a different age, he did something immoral by today's standards, something that person walking the wall may very well have also done had he or she lived when and where Stonewall did. There is a difference between taking an honest account of men's lives, including their sins, and willy-nilly banishing them from collective memory. Maybe this is something General P instinctively understood, and now he's gone. And I cannot help but think that in a small way, this diminishes the prowess of the VMI. I guess we will find out when the bullets start flying, but then it may be too late. Well, Mr. McRae, I think you've done a good job. Here's what we need to do. In my opinion, we need to write the current acting superintendent. We are to blame, okay? We are. Let me enlarge my screen, and I want to enlarge this so that you all can see it better. This is the current acting superintendent. This is my picture over here. I'm trying to enlarge it. Hold on. There we go. We are partly to blame for this, okay? How many of us wrote General Peay back in July when he said he was going to keep the Stonewall Jackson statue and he was going to keep the memorial to the cadets killed at the Battle of New Market? How many of us wrote him to say thank you? If we didn't do that, here's our chance. Write Brigadier General Bob Morshey, I guess it is, acting superintendent, Virginia Military Institute, 201 Smith Hall, Lexington, Virginia, 24450. There's the address. Write him. Tell him you want that statue to remain. Yeah, it may not have any effect. It probably won't. But I would like for everyone watching this to write him. Let him know what we really think, because we failed General Peay. We did that. We are to blame for that. So let me move on to my next point. I enjoy very much getting your comments below. I enjoy even those that want to challenge me, and obviously, in some cases they're wanting to enter into a debate, and that's fine. Let's do that. But if you want to challenge me and have a debate, then my only requirement is you use your real name. That's really all I want to say about that. If you want to debate with me and challenge me, do it, but just use your real name. I'm not going to pay any attention to any pseudonyms. Now, what I want to do, since Stonewall Jackson is so important to this particular episode of Civil War Chat, I want to bring to your attention my book, The Confederacy at Flood Tide. This covers from June 62 to December of 62, when the Confederacy had its best opportunity for winning independence, in my opinion. There's a lot about Stonewall Jackson in here. So I would encourage you to get it. You can get it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It lists there for $28. If you want a signed copy personally from me, it's $30, and you can contact me. I'll put up my address after I finish this introduction. A lot about Stonewall Jackson here. There's a lot about how the war could have been won during this period that you really don't find in most books. I mean, I'm including Bruce Catton, Shelby Foote. We look at the military aspects, the political aspects, the espionage aspects, the diplomatic. There's a lot. And I'm looking not just at Virginia. I'm looking at Virginia, Kentucky, Mississippi, and even the Trans-Mississippi. There was a flood tide. So the Confederacy at Flood Tide by Philip Lee, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere, $28. From me personally, $30 signed. The other one I want to bring your attention to is the causes of the Civil War. We're going to keep seeing Confederate statues come down until we get the message across of what the true causes of the Civil War. Yeah, slavery was a part of it, but there were other parts, big parts, that are overlooked. And this book gives you the explanations that you need to defend our monuments, either in a debate with somebody over the internet or in a presentation, but preferably a presentation before a governing body that's going to make a decision on these monuments. We've got to do something about this. This book was going to give you that information. Now, this $22, you can get it at Amazon. From me, $25, and you get a signature. And for both of these books, if you're in the United States, I will pay the postage. Now, let me see. I want to bring up my address. There it is. Oh, no, I didn't. Wait, I got to bring up the right one. Gosh darn it. Share screen. Is this it? This is it. I'm not bringing up the right one. Wonder what's going on. Top sharing. Share screen. Well, let me get rid of that. There it is. Yeah, there it is. Okay, now you can see it. Just email me there, phil_lee@me.com. And as you can see, I'm using the capital AT for a substitute for the @ symbol because I don't want a bot to come in here and gather that. But there you have it. Use that address, and as I say, I will pay the postage if you're here in the United States. Those are for signed copies of these 2 books. Okay, I'm still learning how to use this, so sorry for the delays. Thank you. November 1st, 2020. That's a wrap for Civil War Chat with Philip Lee. Thanks for watching.